They say the ocean never forgets. Every wave that touches the shore carries stories, memories, and voices from those who were once consumed by its depths. It remembers the joy, the pain, and the terror of those who dared to challenge it. The sea is beautiful, yes. But beauty often hides danger. And sometimes, what hides beneath that calm surface is far more terrifying than we could ever imagine. This story isn't just about the horror that lives in the water. It's about the haunting lessons the ocean leaves behind. Reminders that even fear can teach us how to live, love, and survive. Welcome to the Beach Horror Story Update. The night was warm, the air salty and sweet, with the promise of summer. A group of friends gathered on the sand, their laughter echoing through the night as the bonfire painted their faces in flickering gold. They didn't notice how quiet the waves had become, or how the moonlight seemed to vanish from the surface of the water. The beach was peaceful, too peaceful, and beneath that calm, something ancient stirred. The sea had been waiting, watching, listening, and that night, it decided to speak. Among them was a girl named Mia, a fearless surfer who had always felt more at home in the ocean than on land. The waves were her escape, her peace, her heartbeat. When her friends dared her to surf under the moonlight, she laughed and agreed. She didn't believe in superstitions. She didn't believe in the whispers about the hollow tide, the part of the beach that no lifeguard patrolled. The stretch of sea locals warned was cursed. But as she carried her board into the water, something inside her shifted, a strange heaviness in her chest, a quiet voice whispering that she shouldn't go. She ignored it. The first wave rose high, glowing faintly beneath the moon. She rode it effortlessly, smiling, feeling the freedom she always craved. But as she turned to paddle back out, the water grew cold, unnaturally cold, and her smile faded. The ocean was breathing differently now, as though it had woken up. And then she heard it. A whisper, soft but sharp, carried through the wind. It wasn't her imagination. It wasn't her friends. It came from the sea itself. Mia. Go back. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. She looked around. No one was near. The shore seemed farther away than before. Then the water beneath her shifted, and a shadow passed just beneath the surface. Large, slow, and deliberate. Panic rose in her throat. She turned her boat toward land and began paddling, faster and faster, when suddenly something yanked at her board, pulling it violently. She screamed. Her friends, hearing her cry, ran toward the water as she fought the invisible pull beneath her. The board cracked, a clean, unnatural break, and she felt herself dragged under for a moment before strong hands pulled her back to shore. That night, a storm came. Waves crashed against the beach, flooding the area where Mia had surfed. Had she ignored the whisper any longer, she would have vanished, swallowed whole by the hollow tide. She never surfed at night again. Later, she said something that stayed with everyone who heard it. It wasn't the ocean that scared me. It was knowing I almost didn't listen to myself. Sometimes, the scariest thing isn't the darkness around us, but the voice inside us we choose to silence. The world is loud, full of opinions and distractions. But deep down there's always a quiet voice, a feeling, an instinct, warning us, guiding us, protecting us. When we ignore it, we risk losing more than safety. We lose the connection to our soul. Mia's story isn't just about survival, it's about trust, the kind that can save your life. Because your intuition is sacred. It's the whisper of your spirit telling you where to go, who to trust, and when to run. Fear isn't always the enemy. Sometimes it's the messenger. They say courage is about facing danger, but real courage is listening when your body trembles, when your heart says no, when your soul whispers turn back. The sea taught Mia that night that some storms can be avoided if we listen closely enough. The same goes for life. But the ocean's lessons didn't stop there. There were others who came to that beach. A group of divers who heard about the legend of gold buried beneath a shipwreck just offshore. They ignored the locals' warnings, brushing them off as old fishermen tales. They dove into the dark waters at dawn, searching for treasure. They found it, gleaming coins, rusted artifacts, but something else waited for them below. One of the divers surfaced gasping, screaming that he'd felt hands dragging him down. They laughed at him, until the next day when one of them never came back up. The survivors swore they saw lights beneath the waves that night, glowing faintly, as if the souls of those who drowned before were still there, guarding their secrets. The divers never returned. They learned that not everything is meant to be discovered. Some mysteries exist to be respected, not conquered. In life, we are all tempted by glittering promises, wealth, success, pride. But sometimes, chasing what isn't meant for us leads to our undoing. Respect the unknown. Not every door should be opened. The sea has a way of showing us who we really are. Once, a couple camping by the shore woke to screams in the middle of the night. When they looked around, the beach was empty, but the sound continued, echoing over the waves. Their flashlight flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. The sand beneath them began to shift, sinking slightly as though something moved underneath. The man grabbed his wife's hand, his heart racing, every breath trembling. But instead of running, they held on to each other, whispering prayers into the wind until the screaming stopped. When dawn came, the beach looked untouched. The ocean calm. It was as if nothing had ever happened. They never forgot that night. Later, they said the fear they felt stripped them bare, showed them who they were at their core. Sometimes darkness does that. It tears away the illusions, the bravado, the masks, and what's left is truth. Horror has a strange beauty to it. It forces you to see what you're made of when everything else is taken away. There's an old tale of a sailor who faked his death to escape his debts. He vanished into the sea, leaving behind a wrecked boat and a forged note. Years later, a fisherman found that same boat drifting empty but intact. Inside was a journal written in the sailor's hand. The final words read, "The ocean knows." No one ever discovered what happened to him. Some say he drowned, others believe he was taken, but his story lingers as a warning. The sea does not forgive lies, neither does life. The truth will always surface, no matter how deep you try to bury it. Grief, too, can awaken the ocean's rage. There was once a mother who lost her child to the waves. Every night, she came back to that same spot, sitting in the dark, crying into the wind. Locals would see her silhouette at dusk, whispering her child's name into the tide. And every time she cried, the waves seemed to grow stronger, reaching closer and closer to her. One night she didn't move when the tide came in. When the sun rose, her footprints led only to the water. Some say the sea took her out of mercy. Others believe her sorrow fed the waves. Grief is like that. If you don't let it go, it pulls you under. Pain demands release, not surrender. And then there was the fisherman who survived the storm that should have killed him. When he finally made it home, his body was scarred, his spirit shaken. But when people pitied him, he smiled. "These scars," he said, "are proof I made it." He wasn't broken. He was transformed. Every scar we carry, physical or emotional, tells a story of survival, not defeat. The sea doesn't always take. Sometimes it returns those strong enough to endure. The same is true of life's storms. In a quiet coastal town, a lonely girl spent her days walking along the beach, talking to the waves. She felt invisible to the world, unseen and unheard. One night, under a sky full of stars, she wrote a letter to the sea, a prayer for connection, for friendship, for hope, and placed it in a bottle. She threw it into the water and watched it disappear. Months passed. Then one day, a letter arrived from across the world. It was from a stranger who had found her message washed ashore. The letter read, "Your words saved me. I was going to end everything that night, but your message reminded me to hope." The girl cried, realizing the sea had carried her pain to someone who needed her light. Even in loneliness, her voice had traveled farther than she ever could. Hope always finds its way across the waves. And there is one story that still gives chills to those who hear it. The legend of the eternal shore. Sailors once shipwrecked on a desolate coast claimed to see glowing lights beneath the water. They followed those lights and somehow found their way to safety. Years later, divers discovered that those glowing lights were from bioluminescent algae, nature's way of showing that even in darkness, there is still life. Even the blackest ocean holds light if you look close enough. The beach, in all its beauty and terror, is a reflection of life itself. It can be calm or cruel, gentle or merciless, but if you listen, if you learn from its rhythm, you'll understand that everything, even fear, has meaning. The waves that crash can also cleanse. The storms that rage can teach you to stand firm, and even when the tide pulls you under, there's always a chance to rise again. So, as the waves whisper their secrets tonight, remember this: the ocean may test you, but it also teaches you. It may frighten you, but it never lies. It holds the balance of destruction and rebirth, just like life. And when you find yourself standing at the edge of your own darkness, remember that somewhere beyond the tide, light is waiting, steady, unbroken, eternal. Soft music fades, a single wave crashes, then silence.